On March 13th and 14th of 2024, a widespread deadly tornado outbreak occurred across the United States. We're going to be talking about the tornadoes, damaging winds, and large hail that occurred with this event, what happened to the storms, the aftermath, and more. This is the full documentary of March 13th and 14th, the tornado outbreak of the year. Now, we're going to start off by talking about by far the most significant tornado of the event, that of which being the Wapakoneta, Ohio tornado. This was a violent EF3 tornado that impacted eastern portions of Wapakoneta, Ohio, doing substantial damages to homes, businesses, completely tearing apart mobile homes, and much more damage. Unfortunately, due to the area that it hit being very populated, with the city having about 10,000 people, there were 3 deaths reported already from this tornado. Damage reports are still flowing in, but it is very clear that this was a violent monster. And on the radar, it didn't even look nearly as bad as it actually was. The radar estimated winds, they were, in the low 100s, 100, 110 at times, but this was easily doing winds of 130 to 140. So overall, a very violent tornado up there in northwestern Ohio, and something that area has not seen for a long time. Next up, we've got the Winchester, Indiana tornado. Now, even though last tornado we talked about was the most significant of the outbreak, I would say, this one was possibly the strongest in terms of its actual wind speeds. Its top winds being over 165 miles per hour. This tornado came in at an EF3 from some damage in Winchester to a Taco Bell. There were several other structures that also sustained levels of EF3 damage. Overall, very damaging tornado here, and this is another situation where on the radar, sure, it looked like a strong tornado, but it didn't look like a violent, long tracking tornado, but that's what it actually was. So unfortunately, people were not given as much heads up as they should have been, in my opinion, and overall, it is a very good thing and a very lucky thing that likely nobody died from this tornado. That's not confirmed, but at the minute, we do not have any reports of deaths from this tornado as far as I have seen. So again, I want to emphasize that is not confirmed, but it is possible. So we've got to hope and pray that that is the case. But even if there were no deaths from this event, this was still a true catastrophe in Winchester. Next up, we're going to be talking about the violent Plymouth, Ohio tornado. This was a high-end EF2 tornado. It got that rating by completely wiping a home off of its foundation in Plymouth, Ohio. Now, this unfortunately is not going to get as much attention as it should, just because there were bigger tornadoes in the event than this, but this was still a very significant event to the north of Mansfield. It got PDS warned. It was a very big tornado. But again, unfortunately, it's probably not going to get that recognition it deserves through the coming years, just because of all the other crazy tornadoes that happened in this outbreak. But still, this was a disaster. And the last tornado I will be mentioning from this outbreak in this video is going to be the tornado in Ela Vista, Kansas. Now, this was one of the first of the outbreak here. This was on March 13th, 2024. I was live for this event, and I mentioned several times, this was a very bad-looking tornado. Eventually, it got that PDS tornado warning, and overall, it was very sad, even just looking at radar imagery from it, and it did end up being a low-end EF2 tornado, alright? So, while there are several other tornadoes in this event, in fact, dozens more, these are the most significant of the outbreak, and if I talked about every single one that happened, this would be an hour-long video. So we're going to leave it with that for the tornadoes, but we've still got some significant large hail and damaging wind reports to talk about, because there are some insane reports that have gone unrivaled so far this year in terms of hail and damaging winds. Alright, so now we're going to be looking at the damaging wind and large hail reports from the Storm Prediction Center here for March 13th, which, even this picture is pretty significant. You got reds, which are tornado reports, blues being damaging wind reports, and greens being large hail reports. But on the 14th, they are arguably much worse. In fact, there's really no argument to be had. They are definitely much worse. We see widespread tornado, large hail, and damaging wind reports. So we'll start with the 13th, where things were just a tad bit calmer here, but still some very significant stuff happened, especially in terms of hail. All right, we see that we had so many 1-inch plus hail reports. In fact, we had over 167 of those, all right, or about 167 exactly, actually, of hail of 1 inch or larger here. And then we had your odd 2.5-inch hail or 3-inch hail report here, as you can see across portions of Kansas. In fact, there were some reports of 3.5-inch hail in Kansas. But if we scroll far enough here, we'll start to see even more significant reports, like this softball size hail that was 2 miles west-southwest of Alma in Kansas, that was associated with that Ela Vista Tornado. And 4-inch hail is pretty big. In fact, that is massive hail, all right? That's some of the biggest, in fact, it probably is the biggest hail that we have seen all year. If we keep scrolling down here, the reports continue, all right? They don't stop there. Some more significant reports, very big and hail threat here. Arguably the biggest concern of this outbreak, other than the tornadoes, obviously. So then we'll take a look at the damaging winds for the 13th. We see that we have your power lines down, your trees down, your roofs ripped off, your shingles ripped off, all right? Most of these are your standard 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts here, okay? So we're going to go ahead and move on to the 14th here, which was the day that was much more significant in terms of these reports. We're going to ignore all these tornado reports because we already talked about the tornadoes, obviously, here. But hail reports, we see right off the bat, we've got 2 inches in Okmulgee, Oklahoma. We got 2 inches in Schulter County, Oklahoma here. We have got Jefferson County, Indiana with 2.25-inch hail. And that was another interesting thing about this outbreak. You may notice that I mentioned hail in Oklahoma and hail in Indiana on the same day. Yes, that is true. All these reports could be anywhere from Texas to Pennsylvania. It was a very widespread thing here. If we take a look here, we see we had 535 reports of 1 inch or larger hail and 103 reports of 2 inches or larger hail. So this is likely going to be the most significant hail outbreak of the year. You got your 4-inch report there in Mays County, Oklahoma. We got another 4-inch report there in Benton County, Arkansas. We've got several 2-inch plus reports there. Then we scroll through our sections of Missouri and Oklahoma with 1 to 2-inch hail. We move down here where we see that we have 3-inch hail in Missouri at times, and then we scroll even further and we start to see more 3-inch reports here from St. Louis area. But you'll also notice that this is estimated 3 to 4 inches, so there could have been even upwards of 4 inches. Or 4-inch hail size there in the St. Charles, Missouri area. All right, we keep scrolling, and the list does not stop. This is by far the longest hail report list I've ever seen on the Storm Prediction Center. Surely there's one bigger than it somewhere, but I have not seen one personally. There's a 3.75-inch hail report in Illinois. Keep scrolling down here. It's really crazy how many 1-inch hail reports there were. Again, over 500, and that's just reported to the Storm Prediction Center. Over 500 different instances of 1-inch hail or larger. Here's one of the more significant ones, 4.5-inch hail in Oklahoma. But here is the biggest hail report that we have seen in so long. That is going to be of 5.25-inch hail in Oklahoma, which is massive. All right, that is enough to cause catastrophic damage to your home. The hail that big can literally fall out of the sky at hundreds of miles per hour. It's really incredible the kind of damage that can do and how rare something like that really is. We're really gonna have to scroll really far here to get past those large hail reports, but 5.25 inch hail, just imagine, bigger than grapefruit size. I don't even know what they classify that as. I think that's bigger than DVD size hail, but just imagine DVD record players falling at your house at hundreds of miles per hour. That would not be fun. And imagine if they were made out of ice, and that's what happened there in Oklahoma on that fateful day. We scroll through the damaging wind reports. We see your standard 60 to 70 mile per hour wind reports here. We did have a few that were on the more significant size, like this 72 mile per hour report there in Missouri. Let's see here. What else have we got? I've looked through this list several times, but it gets updated by the second, considering this outbreak was only a few days ago. But we do have a 75 mile per hour gust in Kentucky. This was from a supercell that would not die out. It was capable of producing a tornado for hours. Luckily, it only dropped about one time, but still did some gusty winds to damaging winds through Kentucky, obviously. So that's the 14th there. We could actually take a brief look at the 15th, but it's nowhere near as significant as the 14th or even the 13th, really. But, you know, we still got our large hail reports of about 2 inches being the highest there. Actually, some reports at about 2.75 inches. That's pretty big. That's baseball-size hail. But we do have a 77 mile per hour wind gust there in Texas, a 75 in Texas. So pretty high-end gusts even for that day, but they do not compare to the 14th. That day will go down in history in the tornado textbooks because the 14th was an insane day. It's one of the more violent tornado outbreaks I've seen since I've been interested in weather. It's one of the more violent ones that's happened since I've been interested in weather. There have only been a few that have been bigger, so yeah. Very bad stuff, obviously, that happened. I can't even just say it happened in one area, because it happened everywhere. Very bad stuff that happened across the United States on that day. So, in the end, what did we learn about this outbreak? Well, we learned that sometimes you can't just rely on one weather source as a whole, because the Storm Prediction Center outlook showed a slight risk of severe weather for a tiny bit of western Ohio, but areas in western Ohio received catastrophic damage. The number 2 thing we learned is that we can still see severe weather to catastrophic proportions in unexpected places. Ohio is probably not the number 1 place you think of whenever you think of large violent tornadoes, but they do happen. Okay, you know, really anywhere in the United States can see severe weather if ingredients are set up properly. And this time around, Ohio was the area that got the blunt end of this. I'd say Ohio was the most impacted state. Number 3 thing we learned, hail. That's it, just hail. But on a more serious note, DVD size hail is something that happens once a year probably. It is something that if you see it in your lifetime, you're not going to see it again. I guess you could put it that way. And then, you know, even though we had incredibly significant large hail and tornado reports, the damaging winds, they were more on the moderate side of things, right? They were definitely not as high end. So I hope you guys did enjoy this documentary. I know it was a little bit on the messier side, but I had to get this video out pretty quickly, and I still think it was a pretty good video, so if you do agree, make sure to like and subscribe, as I do documentaries on this kind of stuff every time a major tornado outbreak happens across the United States. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.